Hello, and thank you for joining us. I am Kristen Ashton, the Director of Sales and Business Development for Executive Events, and I am looking forward to sharing some information about virtual meetings with you today. So let's jump right in. As we all know, COVID-19 has certainly created challenging times for everyone. And like many, the events industry has been forced to do a major shift in the way we've traditionally thought about bringing people together. The good news is that there are extensive options available for us to continue producing events through virtual platforms. The not so good news is that the extensive options available can often make it feel like we are drinking from a fire hydrant while we're trying to digest everything and make an informed decision on what's best for each unique event. Today, we're going to take a broad approach and try and help break down what it takes to successfully turn your event virtual, what some of the options out there are and ranges of costs for those, and hopefully provide some helpful insight into the direction you choose for your event. One of the key things to keep in mind about virtual events is that just as with live events, there is a broad spectrum of what's available and possible. What works best for one event may not be the best approach or solution for the next, so we're here to do a high-level overview of what's out there in hopes that we can continue the conversation from here and help put together a customized virtual meeting option that's going to work best for you and your specific event needs. We think it's helpful to break down the components of putting on a successful virtual meeting into three major categories: the platform, technical production, and management and execution. So without further ado, let's dive right into some of the platform options. There's definitely a lot to know and to consider when choosing your platform. So in a strategic approach, we've broken down some of the features, capabilities, and limitations into 4 tiers. Tier 1 is very basic in its approach, but of course can still be a great option for those who don't need something more robust. Tier 1 is going to be what we're all probably most familiar with on a platform like Zoom, Skype, GoToMeeting, Vimeo, and so on. You can still have hundreds or even thousands of people join. You can have 50 to 100 people displayed on live video. People can raise their hands for questions. You can do live polling, have interaction through chat. So there are definitely still a number of capabilities available here, just on a much more basic level than some of the other platforms. One of the most important things to consider in Tier 1 is the live aspect. Live can, of course, be great to simulate more of a collaborative environment where everyone is in the same moment together, but it can also have its challenges. If there is an issue with the presenter's microphone, or their dog runs into the room, or they fall out of their chair, when you do live, there is a lot of room for error. So in turn, there is a great responsibility in putting together, managing, and producing a live production. With Tier 1, you're also stuck to one stream. It's not a clickable environment. So you're really just running back-to-back meetings, and other than the chat and polling features described, there's not a lot of interaction. Another one of the more important things to consider with Tier 1 are the number of attendees you plan to have. While you can have more than 1,000 attendees, that doesn't necessarily mean you want to or should. Again, this goes back to the great responsibility in managing a live production. Our recommendation is typically not to have more than 1,000 attendees on a Tier 1 solution, but of course we can discuss this with you in greater detail if you feel this route is best for you and you do have more than 1,000 attendees. Tier 1 is a great solution if you need a quick turnaround. As we'll get into, the other tiers require a significant amount of lead time to build and prepare, so Tier 1 provides a good option if you are in a time crunch. Again, just to point out some of the limitations, Tier 1 is limited in its capabilities compared to the other tiers we'll be going through. There's not much engagement for attendees, and producing a live broadcast can be risky and taxing. Tier 1 also doesn't have much, if anything, to provide for exhibit or sponsor opportunities, which is one of the most requested features in a platform. So let's jump into Tier 2, which is where things really change. This tier introduces a lot of additional exciting features that better coincide with what we're used to for live events. In Tier 2 platforms, you have opportunities for concurrent sessions and for an exhibit hall or a sponsor lounge, a poster hall, basically an area for a group of people at your event to share their information with the rest of your attendees. In Tier 2 platforms, you can support up to and around 150 booths or sponsorships or posters, again, whatever pertains to your event. This is also where much more advanced chat and polling features come into play as compared with what we discussed for Tier 1. In Tier 2, you can have exhibitors live chat with attendees who visit their booth space. One thing that does come up often is the request for that live chat interaction to be on video. And as of now, we're not aware of any platforms across any of these tiers that currently have the camera live chat as an option. But the live chat feature is still a great place to exchange content, and it does provide the opportunity for an exhibitor to send the attendee a link to their personal Zoom account and conduct a live video chat from there. These Tier 2 platforms are designed for presenters to pre-record their sessions and upload versus doing the live production that we touched on for Tier 1. Not only does this remove a lot of the pressure and room for error, but it also still enables the presenter to be very interactive throughout their session. If people are asking questions throughout the presentation, the presenter can respond to them in the chat right away. They can still conduct live polling, so it provides that same in-the-moment feel of a live session, but again, in a safer, more controlled environment. Just as with Tier 1, just because you can have more than 2,500 attendees doesn't necessarily mean you should or want to. Tier 2 platforms have been used for events with tens of thousands of attendees, but it is our recommendation to think of this as a solution for events around that 2,500 attendee mark. Again, this is certainly something we can discuss with you further, but a good benchmark we like to use for standard evaluation purposes. Tier 2 also has greater opportunities for providing a better overall experience for your attendees. Whether someone is having technical issues, has questions about session times, or their membership renewal, the help desk feature assists your attendees in still feeling supported throughout the event. The same goes for the speaker, exhibitor, sponsor interface, which allows greater connectivity and assistance for the people playing those very important roles at your event. Which brings us to brandability and some of the other more fun features. Tier 2 provides a lot more engagement and interactivity, as well as greater reporting and ROI capabilities for event managers to utilize. This is also where it becomes easier to charge for virtual events, not only because of the improved experience, but also because you're able to provide password protected access that cannot be shared between different users. Again, it's important for us to remain transparent and provide a well-rounded review of the platform options. So just to touch on a couple of limitations of Tier 2, the platforms in this tier are intended for pre-recorded presentations to be uploaded versus live sessions, and there's not much as it pertains to a registration interface. I am definitely a visual learner, as I am sure many of you are. So let's take a look at some examples of what Tier 2 can look like. One thing to point out and be clear on is that in Tier 2, these are still images or graphics, whatever you create them to be. That's where this can be limited. If you've seen some of the 3D polished animated platforms, that is not what is offered here in Tier 2. This is more basic in its approach, but as you can see, with some creativity and perhaps a great design team, you can still produce some beautiful branded content. You can carry your event theme throughout the different areas, promote exhibitors and sponsors, and help guide your attendees without spending the dollars necessary to produce a Tier 3 or 4 option. So now we will dive into those. We don't need to spend too much time reviewing the Tier 3 and 4 features and capabilities, as many of them are repeated from the previous tiers. But Tiers 3 and 4 are going to be more dynamic and aesthetically pleasing than Tiers 1 and 2. They're built to scale to a larger audience and have many different designs that you can choose from, so they were really well thought out in their framework. Similar to Tier 2, the platforms in Tier 3 and 4 are intended for more pre-recorded rather than live sessions. Again, this is certainly not to say that you can't do any live sessions, but more so that we really talk through why certain sessions should or should not be live and work to reduce the number of live sessions as much as possible. Just like Uncle Ben from Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility. So with all of the increased functionalities and brandability offered in Tier 3 and 4, also comes the task of creating and building all of this, which definitely takes time. Most platforms are currently looking at a minimum of 6 to 12-week period for development, and there are definitely larger scale events taking beyond that 12 weeks. So let's take a look at what is being built. What you can't see here, and we really wish we could show you, is that this is fully animated. The people are walking, engaging. You can choose their ethnicity, how many banners there are, if people are waving. The IBM banner on top of the building can be rotating. You can have a blimp fly by. You really have a lot of room for creativity to make this look professional and clean. People also love engagement and clickability. They like to be able to move around and not be held to one area. So here they can click on the auditorium when the session they're attending is about to start, or the exhibit hall to find an exhibitor they're looking for. They can go to the networking lounge to have a one-on-one meeting. Again, aside from the very polished look and feel, Tier 3 and 4 offer the engagement and real-world simulation to make your event feel much more like an in-person event experience that we're used to. So now that we've outlined some of the different platform options, we wanted to discuss the breakdown in roles between the platform, the technical production, and the event management and execution that's needed to produce your virtual meeting. We put together this grid as a high-level overview of different areas that will need to be completed and managed for your virtual event. As you can see, there are some areas of overlap, and some of the roles may vary depending on the platform you choose and the level of support that comes with that. But this should at least help in bringing forward many of the things that you need to think about managing for your virtual event. So let's dive a little bit deeper into each of these. Again, the level of support provided here will vary depending on the platform you end up with. Many of the platforms are simply licensing the software to you, and it is your responsibility to fully build and manage from there. Other times your package may include setup and some maintenance of the platform. If you're planning to utilize any platform integrations, such as with your registration platform, a mobile app, or whatever else it may be, another important thing to think through is who will be setting up those integrations. There may be some instances where the platform you're choosing has out-of-the-box integrations that you're able to utilize, or the ability for someone to build a custom integration through Open API. If the latter is the case, typically the setup of a custom API would be managed by someone technical from your internal team or a third-party vendor hired to do so. Again, we're bringing these things forward as items to be sure to think about and discuss as you're evaluating what direction to go for your virtual meeting and what type of support and management you're going to need to make it happen. So moving on to the technical production, this role acts as the liaison between the event manager and the platform to ensure the technical success of your event. Ideally, you want a company who has expertise of audiovisual for live events and can cater that to the virtual world. We can create guidelines to help presenters create recordings that are as professional and high quality as possible, and also help edit the presentations to make sure the final product is up to the standards of your event. During the event, the technical production manager would act as the technical virtual help desk and would also manage the mechanics of the event to ensure the final technical production runs as seamlessly as possible. And just like with live events, there are a lot of moving parts to producing a virtual meeting. The event manager is there to help manage all of those components, managing the logistics, ensuring everyone is on the same page, and ensuring that the goals for your event are met. Our team of event experts have been doing extensive research to help bridge the gap between live and virtual meetings, and we know what changes need to be made to make that transition. Some of the areas we're continuing to support are listed on the screen. Just like before, we offer all of our services a la carte and can, of course, jump in to help support you in any capacity that might be helpful for you. So now that we've hopefully provided some helpful information on what it takes to produce and execute a virtual meeting, I am sure the next question on everyone's mind is, what does it cost? So we've broken this down by the tiers previously reviewed. And of course, these are high-level preliminary ranges and are subject to vary based on choices made for your actual event. But at least this should help in getting a ballpark range to know what options might be feasible within your budget. These ranges do include technical production support. And if you're interested in executive events providing any additional event management support, we can absolutely quote those fees depending on the scope. It really does take a village, and we believe it is more important than ever to band together. So we are here to help and support you in any way we can, including choosing the right platform for your event, leaving the technical production to the experts, and having our team of event professionals help produce an unforgettable experience for your attendees. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, and please do not hesitate to reach out if there's anything we can help you with.